tight fit. My gosh.
For me.
My God. Oh, okay. Not that much difference. How's everyone feeling? Fantastic. I'm really looking forward to this. Joe, I always love exchanging with you. And hopefully we'll get into some real conversation. We've got 20 minutes, so let's get at it. So look, you listen to the presenters who have given their time. You hear some of the angst in the industry. You hear the opportunity as well. You hear a lot about agencies got to step up. It's a time where clients need us most. Clients are under pressure. Platforms are having their day. Data is everywhere. Creativity is maybe turned down. Strategy is critical. And the voice of the consumer and the market is critical. And then you sort of put a scoop of AI on top of that, and you mix it around. And the question is, like, where are we, right? So I wanted to ask you, because you run a network of agencies, so you see a lot of things from 30,000 feet, and then when you're in the operating companies. Tell us and give us a flavor of what you think has really changed. Like, what's really changing? What's really having an impact? And how are you setting about responding to that?
Yeah, I mean, it's to the degree where I think we're asking ourselves, why the hell do we get into this industry?
Well said.
No, but actually the opposite. I think, so this is actually something I heard at Evore's board meeting earlier this year. Broadly speaking, the advertising, marketing, media industry is 20% of the U.S. GDP.
Well said.
And so when you think about it like that, I always start there. It's actually the best time to get into this industry. And I frankly, I think every year is a better time to be in this industry because the impact is felt. And where we can help brands grow, just that platform just continuously expands. And you have things like AI, right? You have the world of e-commerce. Where is that going, right? Is social commerce going to take over? Is generative UI interfaces going to make websites obsolete? All the way through the most simple thing. I was watching the Yankee game with my dad a few days ago. I had to hear a whole rant about how in Mickey Mantle's day, the Yankees jersey would never have a logo on it of any sort of brand, but it does, right? And so the physical world, the digital world, where we can paint, that canvas is ever expanding. And so I actually think, to your point, clients need us more than ever. The big question is, where can we really provide value? And I think that's what clients are wondering right now is the traditional agency relationships that I've had, they've been great. They've helped me in my career. They've helped my business grow. But what is the new agency relationship? And I think they need us to define it before clients define it for us.
So I'm going to pick up on something you've just said. Tomas was talking earlier about the role of strategy. And essentially he was saying that strategists have become back office. So that there's a need for strategists to be, or strategy as a function to be a growth function, and for strategists to be front of house. What's your view on how you make that happen? When you think about your companies, because I actually believe that to be true. I think agencies sometimes we take the brief and we keep on taking the brief and we don't ask the business questions and we don't plug in. And, talking about agency as operating systems, we don't plug in. How can strategy as a function plug in a practical sense to clients' business and clients' challenges? What have you seen? What are you doing in your network?
I mean, I hate the thought that strategy is a back office function because I actually think it's the tip of the spear. And I think it's become more and more the tip of the spear over time because you have to understand a client's business, right? You have to really understand the brand. But the thing that agencies can do in a way that I don't believe clients are set up to do is really understand the consumer, because clients tend to have a myopic view of who they're speaking to because they're selling certain products or services and they get really, really deep into that. But the great part about agencies is we can go broad. So I go into every pitch and say, we don't know your business as well as you do. We want to know your brand as well as you do, but we may not right now. But we know the people who are buying your product better than you do. And that's because we are taking a view of that audience across what they do in their lived experience, across all the different products they're buying. In fact, the person who's purchasing your product or service, we have 20 other clients that are marketing to the exact same person. And so we understand their entire buying cycle, how they engage, so on and so forth. And that is strategy through and through. We might be redefining what strategy means. Strategy is not writing a creative brief anymore. But strategy is understanding how do people move through the world. It's almost becoming more anthropology than it's ever been.
Right.
And that is something that AI data it'll always augment it and support it, but it's not going to replace a strategist at an agency really helping a client understand what they need to do across their entire ecosystem of touch points to help drive engagement and ultimately sales.
I buy all of that. Here's my challenge to that, though. Rare is the day where you'll get a client who can write that brief, right? Because they just can't write that brief. So my question is, how do you what are you doing differently to plug your teams into client organizations to manifest that need for a solution and for solutions thinking? Because it's difficult for clients to know that. And also clients aren't the greatest at sort of looking enterprise-wide, right? They'll think about the marketing campaign, less so about sort of the business dynamics. You're talking about the business dynamics driving the marketing campaign, driving the solution that's needed. How do you, and what are you doing in your network to plug your teams in differently? Are there things that you're doing in a practical sense?
Yeah, I mean, I think this is where the entire structure of an agency is important, right? So if you look at account management, they need to create the environment. They need to open the door for those conversations. I think strategists have to be the ones walking through the door and driving that conversation. And clients, this is an opportunity, right? Because clients are scared right now. They're unclear. They might think they know something's going to go in this direction, but in the back of their minds, they're still not 100% confident. So, I mean, to a degree, we have to use that fear as, to give ourselves some incremental power and say, if you think about the adoption of these different technology solutions and how long it took Netflix to get to 100 million subscribers, which I think was 10 years. It took ChatGPT 2 months to get to 100 million users. So clients can't think about things in isolation anymore. They can't say, well, I'll get to that next. They need that table to be set. They need other components of the agency need to help plug the strategist in. But once the strategist has that opportunity, it really, and again, in my view, has to be this is how people behave. This is how people act in the world. Forget about the creative brief. Forget about what you're trying to sell today. We'll get to all that. But you need to understand that in 6 months from now, if you don't do X, Y, and Z, these people who you're trying to sell to will completely ignore you. And that's, I think that's, that might even be slow. It might even be in the next 4 months that's going to happen.
So are you retooling your people? How are you, what's happening? Are you training them differently? Are you hiring different types of strategists? What are you doing to respond to that pitch you've just painted? What's happening?
So, yeah, we are looking at, what does it mean to be a strategist at any of our agencies, right? And, strategists, I think now more than ever need to understand how to use the tools that are in front of them. I was speaking to some interns at one of our agencies at the end of the summer, and they said, hey, we're really scared because when we graduate in a year from now, we don't know if we're going to get a job because a lot of our friends who graduated this past May still have not found jobs in the agency world. And, my view to them was, one, you should network like crazy. But two...
But it's tough out there. I mean, it's genuinely, there's less... It is. There are less seats, right?
But if there's less seats and the entry-level job descriptions say 2 to 4 years experience, which obviously the math doesn't math on that.
Right.
But if you walk into these interviews and you can speak really intelligently about all of the tools in front of you, whether you're an account person or a strategist or whomever, you're going to be more valuable, right? You have to be able to use tools. And I think that's every strategist, that is how we're redefining their role is what are the tools that for what you do or what level you are at that we expect you are going to use on a regular basis. And therefore, how is that going to change your output? How is that going to change your ability to contribute? How is that going to change your ability to help us help the clients? So that whole thing is getting recast, but it's honestly, in my view, the tools are a core piece of it where I'm not sure 3-4 years ago, it was more of a touch game, and now I think it's a little more concrete. You have these things, you have to know how to use them better than anybody else, and that's now part of your job.
So is that an expectation you're putting on your people to go deep?
Yes.
Right.
Yeah.
And the tools are the tools that we all know, or tools that you're building internally?
It's a little bit of both. I mean, right now we're using a lot of off the shelf, and I think that's generally a recommendation. I was at a dinner with last night with head of marketer of a really big brand, and she was saying that even they have tons of money to spend on these things. She was like, we're not going to start building our own thing. We're not going to make big bets. We're going to make a bunch of small bets and let the market kind of play itself out. So it's all the general tools that you would think about. But you have to kind of reskill yourself, and you also have to understand how can that then help contribute. I saw you at Cannes over the summer. I was on a stage there talking about social commerce, and I had ChatGPT give me a whole bunch of notes, and then I asked a strategy team at one of the agencies to do the same thing.
Okay.
They did it in about a week, 20 minutes in ChatGPT deep research. What they did was great, but it was within plus or minus 10% of what ChatGPT did in 20 minutes.
Right.
So that doesn't mean strategists shouldn't be there. It just means how are you using your time to contribute, not we should just start cutting everyone's jobs.
So I don't know how people felt when he was giving that that case study, but that's what people are doing, right? The thing that worries me is that can become a race to the bottom, right? So that's a great efficiency play, margin of plus minus 10%. Clients could think, well, then I don't need, the strategy, and I don't need the agency help, that I'm paying for. So how do you protect your business, knowing that those are some of the case studies that you've lived yourself? But how do you then turn and protect your business and protect the brains of the industry? Because I personally believe that strategy is quite simply the brains of the industry. And I don't see a day, I was talking to Meta last week and had a great conversation, and I said, but you got to understand that when Mark says we can automate everything and agencies aren't needed, that's a problem. Like, it's a problem. But the flip side is clients are seeing some of the value of tools, and you've still got to go in and protect your team. So how are you balancing those worlds? I'm just interested to know how you're balancing those worlds.
Well, I think that's where you have to redefine the use cases of where is the technology just all you need, and you just need 30 minutes, 45 minutes, and then you get the output. We have a client, one of our larger clients, the president of the company was telling me the other day, he had a board meeting. He used ChatGPT deep research to prepare for the board meeting. It would give him everything he needed. He didn't have to pull his team off of other projects. Those discrete examples, I mean, that's why I think these tools exist. The way, in my view, to protect strategists is that understanding of that lived experience of the people who are engaging. You can't really you can't get that through ChatGPT prompting. You can get inputs to help you paint that picture, but you don't get that through ChatGPT. And I think I frankly always believed that, but I think more so than ever, understanding we know how people are acting, you don't, because this is literally what we do all day, and only 10% of your day is marketing, another 10% is understanding, customer habits and behaviors, but then there's 10% that does something that we don't even understand that you're responsible for as a CMO. There's a lot more of that. That's why we still hear today, right? The best part of a client's day is when they meet with the agency. We now have to make that a more productive part of their day, not just the most fun part of their day.
Yeah. So I'm a strategist in the audience. I'm looking at you and trying to understand how I thrive in this industry. What are the things that you're doing that maybe I as a strategist can hear from you in terms of helping strategy as a function thrive, and also to really impact clients' business? What are the things that I should be thinking about?
Well, I think it's, again, using all those tools, but really, observations aren't good enough anymore.
Right.
It's really like getting to some core insight. And insight and observation are often used interchangeably in practice, but it's really that core insight of you might not recognize that this behavior is happening within this audience, and here's why. And frankly, it's only because of something that started 2 weeks ago, and then 3 months from now it might change, but we need to be more nimble. That nimbleness and the ability to bring that forward and make it beyond an observation that any client could have seen or any client could have asked ChatGPT about. I think that's really the crux of it. But I think, back in the day, comms planning was a big thing, when that became part of a strategist's repertoire.
Right.
we're back to that, because how somebody engages in social, potentially into the ever-expanding world of social commerce, TikTok shops, so on, how that's going to translate into a Gen UI interface that the brand owns. Where should you be putting your time? Where do we want to direct people? Do we want people to buy our product in social, or would we rather get them to an owned property, or do we want them to get to a publisher that we have an engagement with? How do you think about monetizing whatever Google is going to do, however they're going to adapt search? Because this is another thing that came up last night in the conversations we were having. Google's not going to lose.
Right.
They're just not. So what are they doing? And, is that part of a strategist's role today? I think it is, right? Where is Google seeming to take all of this versus ChatGPT and Perplexity and others? And then, you can get really tactical, but one of the big conversations right now is SEO, right? How do you make sure that your products are still going to be found in a world that, behind the screen, what's happening back there is different than it ever was before? I think that's a strategist's role now.
Right.
It's really making sure that you're going to surface your client's product or service at all these engagement points versus just, historically understanding the brand and then, creating a strategy for a marketing campaign.
I mean, just listening to you, there are a lot of skill sets, right? You went through commerce, you went through social, you went through content, you went through AEO, the replacement, some believe, to SEO. Strategists, so the purist or the generalist, what's your view? Like, what sort of strategists do we need, or do you need in your network for the future? Because that scenario paints a lot of different skill sets. Is that in one person? Is that a team? How are you actually going to deliver on that? What are you expecting from the community for them
I think it has to be generalist.
Okay.
I think you're going to have some specificity, some people who really need to understand certain aspects of strategy or, again, certain tools, and they can go deep. But the way that it's going to evolve and what clients will continue to ask us for and how we need to bring it forward, and with the speed we have to bring it forward, you can't say, well, the brand strategist is going to do this, and they're going to hand it to a comm strategist. He's going to hand it to a social strategist. He's going to, like that's crazy. One, no one's going to tolerate that anymore. But two,
how do you train strategists, though, to have that range?
You have to be curious. I mean, I don't know that there's training, right?
Okay.
Like, I was in account management. No one trained me how to be an account person.
I hear that. Amen.
And you kind of need to be this idea of a T-shaped workforce of you have people who can kind of move laterally, and then you have some people who go really deep. I think that's the playbook. And, we do, as agency leaders, we do have to bring in training, right? We do have to bring in different learning and development modules and probably spend more money on it. But you also need people who are curious, because the people who are the most curious, they're going to be self-taught. They're going to knock everyone else to the side, and they're going to stand up as the people in the room who are going to take the agency and then ultimately the client's business forward.
Got it. Be curious, strategist, be curious. Okay, no, I think that's valid, but I do think that, I think training and upskilling is definitely a part of it. I also feel that, if you've worked in e-commerce and you understand what selling strategy is and merchandising, it's very different to social and content to brand. So I think, I'm going to talk on behalf of the strategists here. I think that we need the agency leaders to invest in the right places, right? So before we finish, because we've got a minute left, talk about that investment. Where are you investing to make sure that the strategy community and the brains of our industry, our front of office, are driving that value, are plugging in and operating as operating systems for clients? What are you doing? What's the present that you can give them as we wind this down?
Yeah, I mean, I think in a lot of ways, we're doing what everyone is doing. We're investing in learning and development around all these AI tools, how to use them, how to actually make them effective. We're investing a lot in data so that strategists have access to data that is then handed to them in a way that makes it easy to manipulate and understand and again, kind of dig into. But I think really understanding these tools and whatever tools your agency use, that's what, there should be some level of training in. And we're bringing in people. We did recently for one of the agencies a full AI immersion with somebody from Stanford University who is just known in the industry. Everybody out there who has a name in this is looking for money through to train your people.
Right.
So it's not hard to find them, and it's worth the spend. But I think you need to train up on those tools, upskill on those tools, and then reset the expectations for what is strategy actually contributing on a week-to-week basis.
Got it. We are out of time with 3 seconds to go. Joe, thank you very much. Always a pleasure,
Thank you.
my friend.
Appreciate you guys. Thank you.
Cool, man.
Thanks.
Excellent. Great job.